Good day everyone. This is one of a series of 3 videos on the use of the bush biomass quantification tool. Today is fieldwork day. We are going to collect field data for inputting into the biomass quantification tool for us to get results on how much biomass the area has. What is always important before you do biomass quantification is to set out the representative sites of the entire landscape area. So that you can have an overall picture of the entire landscape area and have representative sites that will include all variation in vegetation types for you to have at the end of the day an average biomass quantification of the area. So today what we are here now, we have already chosen a representative site of the study area, not actually of the study area, but of the overall landscape area. And so what is going to be doing next is we are going to have our transect laid out in a representative direction. Whenever I say representative, I mean you have to look at the overall geology of the area, look at the overall field of the area, and that is now on the landscape area. Whenever you get to the site, you have to look at the vegetation of the area, see that you don't catch a clump of vegetation and also not bare areas of the vegetation. It has to move through the general structure of the vegetation, and that's how you have a representative direction on your study area. What is now next? I'm just going to take you through important plants, like for example protected species. Those ones are normally not to be recorded, not to be surveyed, but you can record them because they are not to be harvested, so we would like to have them count as species composition but not as biomass quantification. Also, when it comes to bigger trees, those are also the ones that are to be recorded, but normally it shouldn't be counting as biomass quantification. That's why we just record them without measuring them. So what is going to be happening next now is we'll be setting out the transect in a representative direction, and then we'll start with the field work by means of measuring plants, and that's what the survey is all about for this exercise. So me and Petrus, we just worked the site, and we have a representative direction now from this representative point of the overall landscape area. So we are just gonna set out the transect now, and we are gonna start with the field measurements of the plants. We have laid out now the transect in a representative direction on the representative study site or survey site of the bigger landscape area. So now we are busy with field work, with field measurements now. Now we have got the 50-meter line laid out, and we are going to use a normal dumpy level measure to do our plant measurements. We are going to work in the 50 by 2.5 meter belt transect. I'm just going to go through the 3 measurements now, the 3 measurements. Normally there's an option of measuring tree height only. So the tree height only for this one would be 0.9. Whenever it comes to, then there's another measurement option which is canopy diameter only. So in this case, the canopy diameter will be 1.3. And there will be another option of measuring stem diameter. So in this case, it's less than 0.1, the stem diameter. Those are the different options that we have. And we also have a last option of height where canopy is the broadest. So this would be your tree height, and this would be your height where canopy is broadest. So that's 0.6 is the height where the canopy is broadest. So those are the different measurements. And if you go back to the model, you can see that each of these measurements, they have got different accuracies, and there are also some combinations of these measurements, whether you use them alone or in combination. So the choice is yours. So whatever is comfortable for you, that's what you're going to measure. So in this case, I'm going to measure the option which involves tree height where canopy is the broadest, and the canopy diameter. So I'm going to start off this plant, and my colleague Petrus will record all the recordings of the plant. So I'm going to start now with the field work. Just choose other microphyllus or other broadleaf. So in this case, this will be another microphyllus plant because it's an acacia small leaf plant. A broadleaf plants will be, and so on, these are the broadleaf plants. So kicking off with the measurements. Tree height 0.9, canopy diameter is 1.1, and that's it now for the first plant. 0.8, height where canopy is the broadest, 0.5, canopy diameter 0.7. Now we are moving on with the transect. This is a protective spacing, so I just like you to write Bosque albitranca, and we are not going to measure this one because we don't want it to contribute to the biomass quantification, but we would like to have it as part of species composition. Now we have to make sure that the plants are in the 2.5 meter transects that we are going to measure. So whenever I'm getting to a specific plant which is obviously not visibly in, then I will always put the measure pole down like this, measuring from a 2.5 and towards the end, and see if it's rooted within the 2.5 area. In this case, this plant is rooted, so I'm going to measure it. The plant height 1.4, the height where canopy is broadest 0.8, and the canopy diameter would be 2.5. In this case, there is a bigger mellifera plant which would normally not harvest, not quantify for harvesting, but as soon as they are the majority of an area or the dominant size class of an area, you will have to harvest some of them in order to thin out the area. So in this area, as you look around you, generally they wouldn't be harvested for this area. So, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you how to measure larger plants. So whenever it's a larger plant, should it be the case that they will have to be harvested and they are the dominant ones, then you will obviously have to put down the meter, the measuring pole. Then you will have to stand back a bit. You will have to stand back and then look at it from a further point. So Petrus is 3.9, is about 2.8, and we are going to measure the canopy diameter now. In order to measure canopy diameter, you normally have to ask your assistant to keep it under the canopy where the canopy ends. And if it still goes beyond the 5 meter, then you just have to make a measurement. Then you ask your colleague to come. So it's a 5 meter plus a 0.9. So it's a 5.9, that's the canopy diameter. Okay, this is another protected plant, Bosque albitranca, within the transect. It's way within the transect, but it's protected, so we're just going to record it, but we're not going to measure it because we don't want it to also contribute to the biomass of the survey. Normally when it comes to young saplings like this, those ones smaller than 0.5, we normally don't measure them yet because we are not sure if it will make it in life. So we don't want them to start contributing to biomass, as they are contributing so little, and they will not all of them make it in life in becoming big plants. So we normally avoid them at this stage. Once they are above 0.5, then we start measuring them. 1.1. Canopy diameter 2.2. Once you come towards the end of the transect, there's no more plants here, so we have fulfilled our field work, and so we are now ready to take this field work and go input it and go enter it into the model for our biomass quantification results.
So usually before you set up your transect, you want to know or take your coordinates of the site, depending on the number of sites you have. So this is our site number 1, and we have laid our transect, but before we can carry out with the measurements, we have to take the coordinates of this particular site and record it on the sheet. So these coordinates will then help you to generate results in the model, because before you enter the measurements of the plants, you have to first enter the coordinates, both the south and the eastern coordinates. So this is very important, and in many cases when the farmer or the owner of the area or anybody who's going to carry out the assessment goes to the field, it's important that they take along this sheet, and this is the recording sheet where all the recordings detailing to the area where measurements are going to take place will encompass. So the first thing you want to do is to write the name of the farm, and then the date when you are carrying out the survey, as well as the site number, because sometimes you find that you are carrying out a survey in a bigger farm and you might need about 3 to 5 sites. So you number the sites accordingly, and then you also put in measurements of the transect width as well as the length of the transect where you will take the measurements. Very important is also to record the coordinates of the site you are measuring. So after you have recorded the site details, then you go on to lay your transect as a 2.5 and by 50 meters, and then you record all the species according to the measurement. You have the tree height, and then you have the canopy height, and then you have the canopy diameter. These are the most important measurements that the model will use to give out the results of the wood yield as well as the biomass of the overall farm.